Okay, guys, I just wanted to do a follow-up video. I think this is part 4. Some of it might be a little bit redundant, but um, I'm done framing up the Airtronics Olympic 2 and 99.9% done. Um, Horizontal stab and elevator, vertical stab, rudder. Um, we did the plywood reinforcements for the poly brake, and if the large panel is laying flat on your bench, the tip is 3 and 7/16 inches from the bench. So we made a little jig, pinned the center panel down, made a special jig that went on the tip that put it at exactly 3 and 7/16 on both tips. And then I have this rib. I don't think I have one laying here. I might. No. That's about a 1/4 inch rib that you cut. Here's one right here. So you cut it right here. And so this part, when in between the notches, gets sanded away. So you cut it there and cut it a little oversized, and then it gets sanded to fit. And one piece goes in the back, and the other piece goes in the front section between the spar and the leading edge. So pretty nice joints. I'm happy with those. The spoilers have been cut out. I'm not using the trailing edge material like they recommend. I'm going to use a blade style. And I marked where the spoilers sit. So I have to notch out these ribs. And then I took my Dremel, made a center mark with a little jig, and cut out all the holes for the servo lead from the spoiler up to the center of the wing. So here's a look at the other end. Same thing. These pieces of plywood that they give you in the kit, they're the angle's not quite right on them. I sanded them a little bit. I think if I was doing it again, I would get a piece of light ply and cut my own. But because it's the tip, and I did use epoxy. I recommend epoxy on that joint, but it's still a super strong joint, especially considering it's poly brake in the outer tip of the wing. So here's a look at the fuselage. I don't know if I showed you this before. Some of this was done with Ambroid. And so I have all the pieces to make another fuselage. So one is going to be pure, just no power, no motor. And then I'm going to make another fuselage, but it'll be brushless, powered, electric powered. So yeah, that's it. I've got to add this little dowel here to join the elevator halves. I'll notch the leading edge, inboard edge of the elevator halves, square off the ends a little bit, get a nice good joint there, and then epoxy that in place. And while I have the epoxy, I'll wrap that with a little fiberglass cloth just for a little added rigidity. So these come out pretty nice. It's fun sanding all those little joints. I added a couple of gussets, I think, that may or may not have been called for. And any openings that you see, anything like that, what I do is I put a little wood glue in a Dixie cup and just a couple of drops of spring water just to thin it out a little bit. I put it in there, and then I get a piece of scrap wood and my my sanding bar, and I create some really fine dust, and it makes a nice natural colored filler. So a little trick there. And then I don't know if I showed you this or not. This is kit instructions here. If the light will show it. This is the leading edge of the horizontal stab, and there's a piece of 1/8" spruce laminated. There you can see the color difference. If you look at the back edge of that, you can see there's a piece of 1/8" spruce. Because it is such a long piece, it adds a lot of rigidity to it. And there's also a piece here. That was a single piece, and I laminated two together and put that in there. And I'm trying to think if I did anything else. Oh, I don't know if I covered this in the last video. I cut all these gussets. I cut 1" by 1" square balsa, and then cut those in half, into triangles, and sanded them to fit. The only place I really had to sand them was where you have the angle here, where the ribs are going this way and the trailing edge is going this way. So, but that's it. I'll finish doing some more sanding, final fitting. I'll get these ribs in. I'll get the spoilers notched and fitted, and then we'll come back and I'll show it to you before I start covering it. There's plenty of videos on covering, so I probably won't get into that too much. If there's something that I think would be helpful in your covering of your glider, or even if you're building an Olympic or an Olympic 650, Olympic 2, whatever, I'll fill you in on that. But, so, all right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Right now the wing's at just under 100 inches. I will be doing different wing tips than the carved wing tips. A lot of people are probably, smacking the head for that, but just something I want to try out. I do have another wing kit. I can always build the traditional carved wing tips, but and this is all the goodies that you got to have to build a wood model airplane kit. You got to have lots of glue, a mess that annoys your wife or your girlfriend or whoever. You always got to have a cup of coffee. And then you usually don't get up and eat lunch or meals because you're busy, so I got a power bar there. And, that's it. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, likes, dislikes, leave me a message below. I check them every so often. I answer every one of them as best I can. If you like the videos, you find them helpful, subscribe. And I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. See you at the field.